Hi everybody, this is Kimberly. There's some confusion about how to cut out the tab on my Doggie Poo bag holder and sanitizer holder. It's kind of hard to represent that in pictures in the instructions, so I thought I'd do a little video here to show you. I've already taken the time and to show you the versatility. This is the 5x7 option, and what I did is I went ahead and stitched out both the tab and the eyelet this time. I want to point out one thing. When I was trimming this, I was trimming it from the back at first. But can you see what happens when you trim it from the back? Unless you're very, very careful to keep your scissors at a very perpendicular level, you end up seeing a little bit of the white. So over here I turned it around and stitched or cut from the front. So keep that in mind when you're cutting your snap tabs and bags and stuff. Always cut from the front so that you don't see that little bit of extra there. I'm not going to worry about that today, but I just want to point it out since I did it. I'm going to go ahead and cut this now. I left this half circle quite, sorry, there I am with the, I left it a little large because the different bottles, this bag is meant to be able to accommodate different size bottles. So this is a 2 ounce, I don't even know where this is from, my son got it from school. And this is the 1 ounce Bed Bath & Beyond. So they have different openings. So I left this really large. But if you're only going to give a certain style, you could trim this out thicker or thinner depending on which style you're going to use. I'm actually going to trim it pretty close to the seam because when I was doing my testing, I noticed that that bigger bottle kind of got stuck a little bit when I had the circle not quite as close to the seam. So this time I'm going to cut it a tiny bit closer and see if that helps. It's just one of those things that you have to balance having it secure enough with also the easeability of being able to put it in and out of the bag. So second thing I wanted to point out, I just uploaded, or I will be uploading another video that shows how to stop those nasty beginnings that you might see when you first start stitching. If you look down here, I didn't do that. I didn't pull up the thread bobbin first. So you get this little nesting. I don't necessarily mind that, and when I design my snap tabs, I actually try as much as I can to put that beginning and end so that it's enclosed within the snap tab when you close it. But not everybody does that. So these are just the knots at the end that I'm trimming off here. But what you do is you hold up the upper thread, hold it tight, and then you take one snip or one stitch with your machine, press stop, and then hold the upper thread and pull, and the bobbin thread will come up. Then pull the bobbin thread up and you hold both of them together and finish stitching, and then you can trim them at the same time. So that's just a little trick too, it's a quilting trick actually. So what I'm going to show you here is how to put the snaps and the eyelet on this. I went ahead and did both so I can show you both. This is the trickiest part here, and there's 2 ways you can do it. If you want, you can try and get your seam ripper in there and start it from your seam ripper. That's a little bit harder in my opinion because you risk punching you, but it actually works really good. And then you can just use your seam ripper. The second option is to fold it in half and feel underneath that you have the threads lined up, and then use your scissors and take a snip. And that scissor doesn't want to go through. I'm going to switch over these Westhoff ones. Just have a tiny bit point here. And then you can do that, and then you can get started on it. And you just want to trim this as close to the threads as you can without cutting into them. This is going to end up getting folded down inside on top of the bag. It won't be really that visible. So if it's not incredibly neat, I don't feel it's this big of a deal. But if you just go really slow, and I'm sorry this is boring, tedious work here, but if you go really slow, you can trim it pretty close to those threads. And once you get it loosened up, you see what I do? I work towards the outer thread first, because once you pull this flap up, then it's easier to trim the excess vinyl from the flap. So alternatively, if you have some thicker grommets or eyelets, you could actually just fold this tab down and use a grommet through it instead of trying to put it inside the bag. I don't have any right on hand to do that, but I may go to the store and get some of those and try that myself. My eyelets are just the standard 3/8 inch, and I'll show you later. I don't think they'll fit through 2 layers of this vinyl. It would actually end up being 4 layers of vinyl that it would be going through. So hopefully you can see this okay. And you just trim it and see how now this is loose. You can bend this down out of the way and trim this a little bit closer so it's a little neater. And I alternate between these Westhoff scissors and the Kai scissors depending on which vinyl I'm working on. The Kai scissors work much better on slippier vinyl than these do, because these tend to slip around on the slippier vinyl. But I'm working on this chalkboard vinyl right now and it's not slippery at all. So these can get in there a little bit better with the tips of it than the Westhoff, or I'm sorry, than the Kai. These are the Kai. These are my go-to favorite though for stamp tabs. All right, so there we go. So it's free now and you can pull it down. I already took the time to trim around the eyelet, and I'll show you the eyelet later. So this is the tricky part of doing this. Let me see if I can find a pen. And this is why it was hard for me to show this in the printed instructions. What you want to do is take whatever the largest bottle is you have for your sanitizer and put it in there, because you're going to want to be able to make sure the snap, that the flap covers it. So put it in and shove it down as far as you can get it, right there. And I'm not going to say disguise it. These ones are a little bit harder to get out. As you can see, when you go back out, it wants to catch up on that vinyl. So you have to work a little bit harder for it. It may be that if you do the 5x7, you might want to just only offer the Bed Bath & Beyond. But it does work. You just have to work it, and it'll come out. So, you see that? I totally wasn't in the picture. Sorry about that. Okay, so there it is all the way in. And then if you push it hard enough, it just folds the vinyl back. This is why I have a bean stitch all around here. And I know it makes the thread look a little bit thicker, so you really have to maybe match up the bobbin, but you really need that strength because you don't want this coming apart. You're going to sell this, you don't want somebody doing it, having it tear apart. The other thing is, make sure you use a rotary blade or draw a line and make sure this pocket is as straight as can be. It really depends on it because there's a very small amount of space between here and the tab, and you don't want it to get caught up. And I actually just had a bug in the 6x10 version that it was caught up. I had fixed it and uploaded the wrong version. So just keep in mind, if you've purchased this after Saturday, what is today, May 26th, I think, 25th, then you have the newer version. So this is what we're going to do to be able to figure out where we're going to put our tab placement. And you can see it's really tight on this 5x7, so much so that I would recommend maybe only doing the eyelet version. But it's doable. Okay, see how I went down and it folded it over and I held it in place with my thumb. And you can see that you're going to be able to fit it there. So take your awl and make a little hole. I don't think that's going to be good enough. That's not going to go through. See if we go through here. It's not enough. So I'm going to make this tab a little bit farther down. Pull it as much as you can and mark your placement for your hole like that. So I have that marked. I'm going to get my hole punch out and I'm going to punch that hole. I don't think you really need to see this, but let me just do it. Okay. Right, now that I have the hole punched, I'm going to take my cap. I'm going to push it through the hole. And now I'm going to fold it down again as much as I can, and I'm going to use that point of that cap to mark my vinyl right there as to where I'm going to put the other one. I'm going to use a pen so you can see that a little bit more. Right there is where I'm going to put the resultant, the socket. Now as long as I'm here, you can go ahead and add your bags in. I think that the bags that I have are much larger than what most people get from the Dollar Tree or Dollar Store, whatever it's called. I have two sets, one set that I got from Amazon and one that I just bought at Walgreens to have two different styles. So they're kind of thick. So when you want to mark the snaps for the flap, you need to have both of these in here. So we're going to do that right now. So both are in there. And what you want to do is you want to fold this down, and it's tight, but it's doable. So I'm going to work on the bottle version over here because it's tighter. You're going to fold it down, and you're going to do exactly the same thing you did for the other one. You're going to approximate where you want this snap tab to be. So I'm going to guess about right here. So I'm going to make a little hole with my stiletto, and the same thing over here. So make sure I don't go through there. Make a hole with my stiletto. I'm going to go in with my hole punch on those little tips and hole punch it. Alright, I'm going to take the tabs. I'm going to do one at a time just to make sure I have room. I'm going to fold it over and push it into here so I make a mark. Alright, hold that one in place, and now you can do the same thing over here. Grab the cap, fold it over, make your mark. Alright, you see now I have both my marks for my sockets. Now I can take this stuff out of here and do all my punching for my sockets. So I have, this one is the hardest one to do. I'm going to get in there, oops, sorry, helps to put the flat side inside. And this one's really hard to do, so you kind of have to angle it a little bit. And for some reason, my punch does not like to go through one layer of vinyl very well. I don't know why. It just perforates it. It doesn't really go all the way through it. And so I'm going to use my stiletto to get the rest of it out. Using a table press is not ideal for this. And again, see how if you, where's the hardware at? You put your hardware in here, you could actually use an eyelet. You could fold this over and use an eyelet. Or you can actually even use a rivet right here instead of putting it down in the pocket. If you have that option, that would actually probably be a really nice option to use a rivet, because you have a little bit, it will make the tab hang up higher. I'm not going to show you that because a lot of people don't have rivets and are afraid of rivets, but that's a really good option to bypass this issue with the pocket being tight. Again, this is what we have to do to make sure that this works for the 5x7 frames and not have to do multiple hoopings. That was my goal, was to make sure this would work for the 5x7 and not have to do multiple hoopings. There is a lot of waste in our craft as it is, and I don't like doing more waste than necessary. And when you're talking about how much vinyl we waste and paper for the stabilizer, it's hard. So I try to do it with just as much minimal waste. So one hooping was my requirement. Right, so I'm going to do this inside snap first because it's the hardest one to get into. But it's doable. So you kind of jimmy your handle in there, and it's a little bit, I don't know if you can see, it's a little bit tricky to get it in there, but it will get in there. Let me try and see if I can get the angle better for you. All right, get it in there, push, and then, oh, I totally lopsided that one. You'll do a better job than me. Yeah, oh, this is how I did it before. See, if you do it from the side, that's how to do it. That's a ticket. I messed it up. Hopefully that will be okay. All right, and let's do these others. These are easy to do. And I don't know why, it's just my habit. I always do the sockets on what I consider the bottom. So I always put those in first. And I usually always twist my pliers 30 degrees to 90 degrees and crimp again. These are the professional, the newer Cam Snap pliers. They are so much better than the originals. I really don't even have to press that hard on them, and I've had them for a couple of months now since Judy first got them, and they're working just as good as the first day. I love them. I unfortunately did not have success with the table press. I don't know if I have a defective one or not, but mine just does not work. So it's been very depressing because it cost a lot of money. But the pliers work out well for me. All right, I'm gonna do this. I'm so sorry about my dog barking in the background. She's being a little bit of a pain today. And my stamp keeps getting stuck in the lid because I don't have it screwed in tight. Yours won't do that. I prefer just to deal with it because it's easier to swap out the dies when I go to do a eyelet or a rivet. I did end up buying, and I'm going to show you here in a few minutes. Hopefully not a few minutes. I bought one of the crocodiles, and it's pretty handy for the eyelets. I have to be honest though, I don't have the instructions. I never remember which way to put the eyelet, so I just kind of wing it. One of these days I'm going to get out those instructions again and memorize it. Alright, so I know this is very boring snap work. Okay, there we go. So snap all done. While I have it open and flat, I'm going to go ahead and do the eyelet for you. I know there were a whole bunch of people, almost all the designers, posted links to these eyelets from eBay, and you got like 500,000 eyelets for $10. I'm going to be honest, I have had really bad luck with those eyelets. They don't smash well, they're not even. So I'm going back to the samples that I got either from Joann's or from Cam Snaps. It's really disappointing that those eyelets don't work well. So I'm going to use a 3/16 marking here, and then you can see you can line up the hole actually right in there. Can you see that? And then center it and pop it, and this thing cuts really nicely. Then you put the eyelet in there and push it in, and this is the part I was talking about. I never remember which way it's supposed to go. Do you see how there's the little prongs inside there? And I just never remember which way it's supposed to go. So I just do it like this, and then you just crimp it really well, and it crimps it out. This kind is the kind that flattens out like that. But there it goes. It's ready for your split ring. These are really hard for me to get in here. I don't know what the trick is for it, but I have a hard time. But once you get it passed into that eyelet, then it works. So you put your split ring in it. There you go. The eyelet's done. Now let's put I'm just going to put this one back in here. And the one thing to note is when you undo the clasp to open this up and refill that sanitizer, you have to hold on to this because it will come off. Another reason why doing the rivet would be a much better ideal if you can do that. In fact, I may do yet another one and do a sample with the rivet to show you. And that's not stamping real well because that's the one I smashed, if you remember. Okay, and then push this down. Push this down. And there you go. So now you have the lobster version. And you have the eyelet version all at once. You could just stitch out one or the other. Personally, I like the eyelet version. When I first did this sample, I had just this version, and I didn't like the way it hangs. Not because it's tight here, but just, I'm imagining this hanging off of a leash, and it seems very cumbersome. So I had the idea, why don't I just add a little loop on there? I got room in the design and make an eyelet, and you see how that hangs nicer? So imagine that's hanging off your leash. It's going to hang nicer. As long as the sanitizer container is closed, it should be no issue hanging vertically. With the Bath and Body Works, you do kind of have to push this a little bit to get to the lid. And that's okay. The design is designed so that it'll work with both of those bottles, as you saw. It works with the 2.ounce bottle. And you have all this room to put a name. Here's my example here with Vito. This Geo Glitter is my second favorite from my punk embroidery. I go back and forth between the Geo Glitter and the Luster. But here's this one, and you can see how that worked too. It's a tight fit. If you do the eyelet version, you don't need to even do that additional stamp. You can do that here. Voila! Hope you like it. Thanks.